the Unemployment Insurance Fund doesn't seem like it can get its house in order. Well, at least for now, from dodgy investments, delayed payouts, to perennial queues at its offices, there are now calls for this entity to be placed under administration. And of course, there's been quite a lot of concern, even from some of the people that cannot even get their payouts on time. You have COSATU also lambasting this to say that the workers find themselves in long queues. They're not able to get their money in time. Think about pregnant women who are supposed to be getting access to this particular funding, but they cannot get access to it. And it does seem like there are some issues. There are still also even some of the audited financial statements that are still outstanding. But let's speak to the minister now, who is as equally concerned about what's happening, Labour and Employment Minister Thulas Nxesi. Minister, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. There are calls now for the UIF to be placed under administration. What are your thoughts?
Can I request that you increase your volume? But if I heard your question, our response to this, we acknowledge the challenges in the fund, and we have diagnosed the areas needing interventions, working with a private company, Price Waterhouse, and we are discussing their recommendations and how to implement the interventions. And as a department, we've set up an engagement model with our social partners, including COSATU and BUSA. They are a big part of it, the community together with us as government. We have engaged at this level to resolve and deal with a range of issues that affects their constituency. And in the recent past, we can talk about what we have done in 2008 when we're dealing with the recession, which saw the introduction of the very temporary employers relief scheme. And in 2020, we embarked on a similar journey to handle the COVID through the COVID tears, which saw the UIF pay about 64 billion. So our engagement continues on a number of issues, including the labor laws. So we welcome inputs from the social partners to the available channels, including their ideas.
Yeah.
And we are discussing those issues. But what we are saying is, just talking about putting this thing on the administration is not going to be helpful, because we must continue delivering the services. And at the moment, we are busy with recommendations from which we have to implement, which talk about the structure, the strategy, the skills which you need, and the cultures of work and the IT systems, especially cybersecurity. Because our reason is very simple. We are saying you are dealing with an entity which is highly data intensive, highly financial, cash intensive. Therefore, you need a system like in the bank. So the skills in the banking industry, the skills in the insurance industry, and also skills in the medical industry and high-level skills are what we need in order to turn this.
So, Minister, I'm going to get to the skills in just a moment, but these particular recommendations, do they then deal with some of the concerns that have been raised about this particular entity? For example, some of the investments where it's losing money. But at the same time, you think about the number of people who still wait for their payouts for months, some even years, pregnant women who sometimes wait even for longer than 2 years to get their money. Does it resolve that?
You see, some of these claims are baseless. People just go into the media and make a lot of noise. They are not able to even quantify this thing. When we paid the COVID tears during the COVID times, we were caught because we paid everybody, and it was an agreement that even those who didn't pay. But later on, the audit came very, very negative on us, on how we have been paying. So our officials now have been very meticulous in terms of paying, making sure that we get all the information before we can be able to pay, and making sure that the companies are able to contribute as they are supposed to do.
Yeah.
If they do not do that, we're not going to be able to pay that. And that's why some of the backlogs are. And very interesting, the business is not talking about some of the companies who were involved in fraudulent activity that were able to recover about 3 billion rands. And they are able to talk about the easy things, not about what some of their constituencies are doing.
And that's exactly where I was going to go to say that at some point the fingers need to also look at some of the businesses that we saw being raised as a concern during the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, who submitted fraudulent claims. And I wonder, how far are you in terms of recovering the monies there?
We have put a system which we say follow the money and appointed about 7 audit firms. And that's why I'm saying, as we speak now, we have been able to recover some money, about 3 billion rand, and we continue to deal with those who are involved in the corruption, and we have been able to catch some of the people in the systemic in the systems which we have put in place in order to follow up what is going on. And what I need to say, to emphasize, is that I can't say the UIF system is totally dysfunctional, which could make it difficult for the fund to honor its obligation to pay the beneficiaries. And we pay no less than 15 billion per year, and more than 500,000 workers are paid every year. And now, as we speak, this year, this has gone to about 900,000 people whom we have paid. However, it's important that we also note that we don't have the best system in order to be able to deal with, especially the IT systems. That's what we are trying to upgrade. That's why we are appealing to the private sector to second those skills to us, and which we can be able to digitalize our systems.
Pardon me, Minister, for coming in there. We're running out of time. But then if there's issues around, audited financial statements that are still outstanding, there's issues of systems, there's issues that have also been raised around some of the investments where there have been losses by this particular entity. What then becomes the role of the commissioner and the DG and those at the helm? Are these people still fit for purpose?
I think those issues have been raised. Those issues have been raised by the AG, and the officials are in the process of trying to correct those. They've put some of the processes which are addressing those issues. For instance, if you were to talk about the investment, one of the problems is that most of the investment in the UIF are done through the PIC, and the financial years are totally different. Some of our finances were able to delay in submission of our finances for a simple reason, because our financial year ends in March, and most of those companies, their financial years are totally different from us. They end at a different time. We have to wait until we get all those statements before we can make the submission, and that is why we are delaying. And it's normal that we have, if you have delayed for one reason or another, you have to make a request to the treasurer and even parliament that we are going to delay in submitting and put a date, a new date, to be able to do that.
Minister, I hope that we get to speak in future about this, because the issue of queues, there are people that we know that have actually even written to us about some of their claims that are not being finalized, not even getting as much or as a response from the office of the UIF to say, this is where your claim is, this is what's outstanding. And these are some of the issues that South Africans do care about. But I hope we get to speak again, because we're out of time, and talk about exactly what needs to be done in this particular regard. That was Labour and Employment Minister Thulas Nxesi.
I hope you have been to the Labour.
As the minister wraps up there, in fact, I have been to the UIF, so I suppose then now we get to talk about these issues at some point with the minister, just to be able to iron out some of them.